Hey, we're going to start this year out, season three of Archery Talk 101 podcast, uh, with some instruction. I'm going to go through what my process is and how I shoot a bow, and we'll go through and teach you that, and then we'll go over some other techniques and stuff. So we'll do that. We'll start off this year with beginner stage. We're going to start off with somebody that's never shot a bow before and kind of go through what you want to look for, what you want to look into, and just kind of where to go. When you first start off, you're interested in shooting a bow. Where do you go? Do you, you know, ask your buddy that's never shot a bow, or you go talk to somebody that's been doing it for a while. So find somebody that is doing it and talk with them and get started. It's always nice to have somebody with you. Now, if you want to get started in archery and you don't have anybody that bow hunts around you, find an archery shop or an archery club, and just go in and talk to them, find out what you want to do. You need to look at a couple of things. What are you interested in doing? Are you interested in only target shooting? You're interested in only hunting? You're interested in both of them? Do you want to go through and um, start with traditional equipment? You want to start with the compounds? You want to start with crossbows? There's lots of options. It depends on what you want to do. Maybe you went through and you've seen the reruns of the Hunger Games, and that interested you, and you'd like to learn how to shoot a traditional bow, whether it be a longbow, a recurve bow, or any of the other variations of your traditional type bows. And then you can always get into crossbows. Then you have to look at, you know, not only what are you interested in, but what can you physically do? If you're not strong enough to pull back a compound bow or a traditional bow, then crossbows are going to be a good option for you. Those are a good viable option. Depending on what state you're in, some states consider them in the firearm category, and others don't allow you to use them at all. And others like Nebraska, now it doesn't matter. It's considered archery equipment, and that's want to look into what your state does. I only know for sure what Nebraska does because that's where I live, is in Nebraska. So you want to look at what type of equipment you want to shoot. Now the crossbows are going to take the least amount of practice to get good enough to go hunt with. Your compounds are going to next um, least amount of practice, and then of course your traditional equipment is going to take the longest time and the most practice to get good with it and to be able to hit your target. You're going to have a closer range with your traditional equipment than you will with like a compound or a crossbow. Uh, I know there are people that will shoot, out to 100 yards. Um, as you get older, you don't see that well, so you don't shoot that far. But start off with you want to start off fairly close so that you can hit your target. Don't try and start off shooting those 100-yard shots because you're going to lose lots and lots of arrows. Unless you just like losing arrows, then go for it. Otherwise, start at 10 yards or 5 yards or wherever you feel comfortable that you can hit your target. If you're starting off with the traditional equipment, go at 5 yards, and get to where you're consistently shooting good, and then start backing up, and then backing up and backing up some more. And in traditional shooting, there's lots of different options. You can do the completely instinctive where you don't look at your bow, any part of your bow, you don't reference off the tip of the arrow, you don't have sights on it, you just look at the target, draw back, and shoot. And just instinctively shooting from there. Then there is other options to go into where you use the tip of your arrow, and then you start picking out your gaps. Like, okay, at this range, my tip needs to be here or there. And then there's what they call string walking, where you actually use the tip and you put it there, and depending on where your hand is on the string is where you're going to hit. So the further down the string is going to be close shots, and then as you move further up the string, it's going to tilt it up a little bit higher for your longer shots. That's a whole other process that is something you have to learn. Then you can go, like with your Olympic style, where you have sights on there, and you're still shooting at your distances. And then you have to decide, where do you want to anchor? You want to anchor I always anchor the corner of my mouth. You know, a lot of them will anchor down underneath their jaw. It's just it doesn't matter where you anchor as long as you anchor the same place every time. So that's the biggest key in starting out. Um, Now let's say once you get to okay, let's say you want to go to the store and you want to shoot a compound. There's a lot of things you have to know before you get there. So let's start off with you get to let's send you to an archery pro shop because they're more likely going to have people that know what's going on. You go to your box stores and you may or may not have somebody that knows what's going on with it and can set the bow up for you or even teach you how to shoot. They might just like, well, here's what you need. You need this, 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 and this. And you know, if they're working completely on commission, they're going to go with the most expensive bow, the most expensive rest, the most expensive sight and stabilizer and all that because they make more money. So you want to make sure you go to a place that is actually going to fit you for what you need. As a beginner, you don't really need to be spending high dollars on your equipment. Um, you can if you want, but I don't recommend it because you don't know really what you want. When I have my store, I would take a beginner and I'd put them in the low end bow. Not that they didn't shoot good, they did shoot good, but there's some features you get more and more expensive ones. There's other features that you can get in them. Sometimes a little faster. They have a more solid wall. There's all kinds of different features that you can get in them. As a beginner, you don't know the difference because you don't have that experience to know what you really like and what you don't like. So start with something that is, lower range. Look at what your budget is. How much do you have to spend? If you got $500 to spend, uh, I recommend spending about 250, 300 at most on your bow and setup and spend the other 100, 150 on a good release. The release is going to make more difference in your shooting than what the bow will. So you can take a low end bow and with good form and good release, you can shoot really well. You can take a high end bow and with terrible release, terrible form, and not a good quality release, you're not going to shoot as the guy that has the good quality release and good form against a cheap bow. So that's just something you want to look at. Start off with the package deals and what they call the ready to shoot, or sometimes they list them as RTS, but they come with the rest, the sight, and the bow. Some will come with stabilizers. I don't think too many more, but they might come with a stabilizer and a sling. You just need a release and in your arrows, and get one of those that fits you. Now, do you want a right or left-handed bow? Now, if you're right with your right hand or your left hand, don't make any difference. You want to see what your dominant eye is. So if you're right eye dominant, you shoot right-handed. If you're left eye dominant, shoot left-handed. Now, if there's a physical reason that you can't, say you can hold with your left eye dominant, but you can hold with your left hand, but you can draw with your right hand, but you can't do it the other way around. You're just not physical limitation. You can't draw with your left hand, so you can't shoot left-handed. So then you would change something. There's other things we can do. So if you run into that kind of situation, that's when you want to get with somebody, like myself, that has helped set up people that have different considerations. There's all kinds of different considerations. And the way I teach is the way I do it based on my experience and my training. I teach everybody that way. That's the only way I start teaching. Notice the keyword start. Then once we go there, then we're going to modify it to fit you so that you can take and make it your own. Because my body shape and consideration and strength is different than yours. Nobody has my body shape and strength and condition that nobody has it. But a lot of the techniques are going to work for everybody. So you want to get with somebody that is going to look at what you're doing and then be able to adjust that based on what you're doing. So when you go into your store the first time, you want to know what your dominant eye is. There's a simple way of checking that. If you look at an object off at a distance, and then take your hands and make a little circle. So there's a circle in there. Look at that distance and look at that distance through your eye. Now, on me, you can see one eye. That is my right eye. So, and you can bring it back. I still keep it in focus. And then if you close the right eye, you're going to see it jump to the side. Now, for me, if I close my right eye, where my hand is to the right of where I'm at. So that's why you want to shoot your dominant eye, just as an example of what can happen if you're not using your dominant eye. Um, I've always had my right eye is clear, my left eye has always been a little bit blurrier than my right eye, and I see two sets of pins when I look at my bow. And I've shot so many years, my mind has just picked up the bright set of pins, which is my right eye picking them up, and I just ignore them. So I don't even notice they're there anymore because I've been shooting for a few decades that way. And then now that I've gotten older, I started getting a little cataract on my right eye. You know, it happens when you start getting older and you're you know, late 50s, early 60s, and I'm in my late 60s now. So so now the right eye was blurry, the left eye was clear. Now, what's my mind been trying to do? Ignore the dim set of pins and pick up the bright ones. So I shot at this deer. It was, 10, 15 yards away. I don't remember now. And I know that pin was right behind that shoulder like it was supposed to be. And I shot and it ran off. We got it. I did hit an artery in the back hip, so we did recover it, but I hit it in the back hip. It's like, I'm that far off. What's going on? So I went down to the range. Is when I was in an archery club. So I went down to the range, and I always practice with my left eye closed, just because I want to be precise and I want to hit. I'm aiming for that X. I want to hit the X. So I just close my left eye when I practice. When I hunt, I'll hunt with both eyes open. So I went down to the range, put a 5-spot up at 20 yards, and I shot at the upper right-hand target or spot, so the other 5-spot, I shot at the upper right one and hit it. Like, no problem. It's like, what's going on? So I opened up both eyes like a hunt. I missed the target completely to the left, because what happened was my left eye was picking up those pins when I opened it up. So now I had to figure out, okay, what can I do to train my mind to pick up those pins? So that's when when I was going out, then I'm constantly blinking my left eye to force me to my mind to pick up the correct set of pins. And then one day I had my baseball cap on. I always wear a baseball cap, and this time I had a hooded sweatshirt on. And when you have a hooded sweatshirt on, you turn your head, the hood doesn't really move because it's not fastened to your head. So I turned, and by turning enough, that hood blocked my left eye, and then the problem was solved. So that's something you want to look at. What is your dominant eye, and how are you going to, make sure if you have a problem? So that's something to learn and know. It's like, oh, what's your dominant eye? And is there a problem if you have both eyes open? What are you picking up? And so that's something you want to know before you even get started. So you get started with the correct bow, whether it's right or left-handed. Now, I have a couple options. One, I continue, just blocking my left eye or closing my left eye when I shoot, or I can just go to left, shooting left-handed. Well, all my bows are right-handed. I've been shooting so long that way. I really don't want to buy a new bow. So I'm going to stay that way. I just know that situation arises. So I just had to make sure I take care of that when I do shoot my bow, that I take care of that. So now that we got your dominant eye covered, once you get to your store, the person that's helping you set up should be checking for that. If they don't check for that, you know what the answer is because you've already checked it. They should check for it. If they don't, that's something, you might think about, is this the person you really want to work with? Because they want to know what your dominant is. One of the first questions is what type of bow. When you get in there, they're going to ask you what type of bow you're looking for. So they know what to show you. And then they're going to find out, okay, what is your dominant eye? So they'll want to show you right or left-handed bows. And then the next thing you want to know is your draw length. So they should be measuring your draw length. And there's several different methods that you can do. You can measure wingspan and divide by 2.5 or something like that. And Or you can take a yardstick and stick it right on the center of your chest and hold your arms out in front of you and see where that measures. That's going to give you an idea where your draw length is. All those method is a starting point. It's not your exact draw length. By doing those, it knows where to start. Generally, you're going to be shorter than that, but that at least knows, okay, if I'm 29-inch draw length, I know I need bows that are 29 inches. If I'm only 27-inch draw length, I don't want to get a bow that's 29 inches because you will be hitting your arm. So that's one of the things that you want to look at is what are you going to set your draw length up to? And now then, the next thing you want to do is go in and take a look at all the bows that are in your price range. And then let's say, let's just say your right-handed bow is what you need because you're right-eye dominant. So all of them that's in your price range, pick it off the rack, put it in your left hand and see how it feels. If it feels good, okay, that's one to consider. If you don't like the way it feels in your hand, put it back up. You're not going to shoot it good. If it doesn't feel good in your hand, you don't want it. So don't look at the brand. That makes no difference. All the bow manufacturers nowadays are good quality bows. It's just how's it feel in your hand? And now then, once you get, let's just start off with 2 bows because it's hard to make a decision with more than 2. It's like you would like this one or that one better. And then you can go look at another one. Say you go through and I find 5 bows that I like the way they feel in my hand. So I'm going to grab bow number 1 and bow number 2. And the technician's going to set up bow number 1 at my draw length and crank the weight all the way down to the minimum. So you want to set all the bow weights the same weight. So if you're setting it at 60 pounds, you want them all 60. You don't want one at 70, one at 60, one at 50, because they're going to feel different. That same bow shot at 60 and 70 and 50 is going to feel different no matter how you have them set up. So you want all the same weight, same draw length. So the only difference is how they feel when you shoot. So take bow number 1 and shoot it a few times and see how it feels. And then if you're, once they get them ready, grab bow number 2 and shoot that, see how that feels. Now, if they have a place where you can do that and you can safely do it, if you can't really tell which one you like better, grab bow number 1 and shoot with your eyes closed. You're going to feel what happens. Shoot bow number 2, and then which one do you like better? And then why? Now, your answer why makes no difference what you say. When I ask that question is, why do you like this one better? I don't care what the answer is. You like it better. I want you to express why you like it better. So now you understand, I like this one better because it feels smoother or it has less vibration. And then you like bow number 1. So now then grab bow number 3 and shoot it. And then shoot 1 and then 3 until you figure out which one you like better. And until you get through all the bows that you want. Now, I may have to do it different days because it can be a little tiring if you're not used to doing a lot of shooting. But go through, now you know which bow you want to shoot. And there's a couple things that you want to do once you start getting in there. Now let's look at a little more detailed on how you're going to correctly shoot the bow. Now, I have heard some people that are people that are selling the bows say, well, we'll fix your form later. Well, fix your form later means you have now bad habits you're going to try and break. So let's get into some of the things you want to do in setting up your bow. So there's some things that we can go through. We're going to go through a few things to set up what we want to do in order to start off with it. So what we want to do is we're going to take a look at the correct way to hold your bow. Now, that is kind of a question.
We're going to go over how to hold the bow. So start with.
I'm going to get here and share my screen here, and I don't know if we're going to hear the thing. So let's go ahead and share the screen. I've got a video I created on how to hold your bow. Now, the way I teach the stance, if you don't hold it this way, there's a good chance you're going to hit your arm. Because I teach a completely closed stance. I don't see an extra closed, but I keep closed stance. Some would do an open stance, and we'll get through in this video here. We'll show the stance. Now, an open stance, you're going to take your left foot, if you're right-handed, and move it back, which takes a little bit different angle. So instead of being straight at your target, we're turned off to the side a little bit. So that kind of opens it up, and I'll go through some of here. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to share my screen, and let's see here. I'm going to share the sound as well, so I've got some instruction in here. So we should be sharing my screen over here where I created all these videos. So let me go ahead and get this started.
Okay, today we're going to go over how to hold the bow. So to start with, you're going to have the bow is going to go through your hand in this position right here. You're going to be pushing with this part of the hand as you're pushing the bow. You're going to be pushing with that. This hand's completely relaxed. You're going to push away.
Now, just for those that are listening on the podcast instead of the video, what I did is in between your thumb and index finger, there's that little, what they call a lifeline that runs through your hand. So that's where the bow is going to follow your lifeline. And then the pressure point is the spot between your thumb, the meaty part of the thumb, and the meaty part underneath the little finger. There's a spot that you can kind of push on that goes straight to the bone. And that's what you want to push with. You want to push with the meaty parts of the hand because that's too soft and too flexible. What you can do on them is if you put your hand at an angle, and you can just do this in front of you, take your index finger and push on the meaty part below your little finger, and you'll see your wrist wants to turn. Now go onto the meaty part underneath the thumb, and it wants to turn the other way. So now your wrist is wanting to turn. So now if you push straight in the middle, you're going to feel that force all the way to the elbow instead of twisting in the wrist. So that's where we're going for those that don't get to watch it.
So now we're going to grab the bow. You want to use a sling. Always have a sling, but you don't want it tight against your hand. You want to just keep it so it will hold the bow.
Now, the reason why you don't want your sling tight is because you want the bow to react like it wants to do. And if you have a sling, then depending on how tight it is, depending on if you have a little bit of variation in your wrist, or you put a glove on. If you have a glove on sometime, you have a small glove, it's going to change the pressure and the angle on it. If you have a big heavy glove, it's going to change it. So you want your glove, your hand, so it's in the sling. The sling can be really loose. As long as it's fastened, you can't not drop your bow. You can let go of the bow and it's not going to fall. So that's why you want a sling on there.
Now you're going to have your bow you want it so it balances in your hand. And now you're going to put the bow in this grip. I like to take and put a little pressure on it before I draw and drop this hand down. So it's going to see how it goes through that part of the hand. And now as you get ready to draw, you're going to be pushing this hand forward as you draw back.
Okay, now one thing that I didn't talk about there is I actually point my arm to the target, bend a little bit towards the target, and as I draw, you have a tendency to stand up. If you start standing up, you're going to lean back. Now, I do go over that a little bit later in a different video. So we'll come back here, and that's one of the things that you want to have, that proper grip. If you don't have that proper grip, you're going to have a tendency to hit your forearm. And anybody's ever hit their forearm, it hurts. And then it swells up, and then you hit it again and it swells up, and you hit it again, and next thing you know, it's like you're getting rid of the bow because you've just really made some really damaging pain on a lot of pain and a lot of damage to your arm. So you don't want to hit that arm. So you want to make sure you have that good proper grip. That's one of the things that you want to look at when you're doing that, is make sure you have that good proper grip. Lots of times they don't teach that style of a grip, unfortunately, because that is the best way to hold the bow, because you got that pressure going in there. If you have like a traditional bow, you can still use the same grip. I use that same grip on no matter what bow I'm shooting. Now with a traditional one, because you don't have a sling on there normally, you know what you're gonna do is you're gonna lightly close your hand around the riser, around where the grip, you're gonna grip it slightly. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on it, but just a slight grip on it. You're still gonna push the same part of your hand because that's the most efficient. Now, the reason I teach that way is, you know, some of my other training that I've had in martial arts. The most efficient way to put force into an object is if you're at a 90-degree angle to it. If you look at in the martial arts breaking boards, I've broken several of them. If you hit that board straight, so you're at a 90-degree angle to it, all that force goes into it and breaks. If you're off at an angle, it wants to slide. So your amount of force is not completely through the board. Part of it's through and part of it's down. Anything that is down is not going to help on putting breaking that board. Now, I use that to put my force straight to the target, and we'll get in that a little bit later. So let's go in with foot placement. Now that's where there's a couple different variations in here. So let me go ahead and share my screen again so we can go in and what we're doing. Okay, now we should have our screen shared here where I'm going to talk about proper foot placement.
I'm going to tell you how there's proper foot placement. So what we're going to do is we're going to take an arrow, put it on the floor so you can have a little line. So this arrow is going.
Just a little side note, that's an arrow that I made when I was in Boy Scouts. So it's quite old arrow.
To point straight to your target. Now you'll see some people come in and try and do an open, or they come in. No, you want to put this toe points towards your target. So now you have a nice straight line. You're all in a straight line to your target.
Okay, I don't remember if let's go and stop the share on that one. So I just want to check, make sure I turn the sound on. But what I did is I set the arrow up so it pointed towards the target. So that's the most efficient direction. That's 90 degrees of the target. Now up and down, you have a little bit of variation in doing that. And then I teach that lining your toes up. Now, we don't generally teach that to somebody we're going to have for 10 minutes to get them a little training. Because if you do that with your feet and you point your arm to that target and you don't use the grip I just talked about, you will be hitting your arm. So that's why a lot of them will teach that open stance, because it does keep that arm a little bit more out of the way. But what you're not going to have is you're not going to have that direct line to your target. And I'll go a little bit later. I'll go through some of that. So that is a couple of the things that I think is important to learn to start with. Now, one of the things that we can do is to learn the proper release. We can work on that a little bit later. So let's go ahead and we're going to show another video here. And this one is going to be on.
Today I'm going to show you the problem.
Now, how I draw my bow. So let me go ahead and share that screen again. Okay, now I have one of my bows. I'm going to show a couple different methods. One with a wrist strap. Mine has a hook on it, and then also with a handheld release. I'm going to show the two different methods. But if you notice, the only difference is where my hand is positioned when I draw back, because I use a kisser button, a peep, and then the side of my nose, so it all fits in there. So let's go ahead and play this little short video.
Okay, today we're going to show you the proper way to draw the bow. Now remember the hand grip. We're going to go in here and go down on here. Now this bow.
Now what I did on that hand grip is remember we talked about the bow goes between the index finger and the thumb. So what I do is I kind of open my hand up, put that on the top part of the riser where it's going to go, relax my hand, and then drop it down So now the pressure is on there. That gets me in the same grip the same time every time I get the same grip. And then once you learn, I have a level on my bow. I don't use it anymore because it's just there, but I draw back and I've used it so many times. I know that when I draw back, I'm level. Now, if you don't have that, you know, experience or that practice in there to know that it's level, then put a level on there, draw back, and part of your process, glance at the level, and then if you're not level, let down, reposition your hand or wherever you need to get to that point. So we're going to come back in.
Happens to have a drop away, so it's going to pull up when I shoot. That's what this little string down here is for. But I'm going to put a little pressure on there, and I'm going to hook the release. Now this is, I'm going to show you with a caliper style release. This is my one I use here. So put your hand in here. I like to drop it down with a little pressure on the string, so you can see I pull them back. A little pressure on the string. Now I'm going to step up. Now when I get ready to draw, if I draw from here, I'm going to end up leaning back. So you want to lean a little bit forward, point your target towards, make sure I don't hit my ceiling over here. I'm going to put towards the target. You're going to do a little push with this hand as you're pulling with this one. So you're going to pull back. Okay. And now you're going to get your kisser button if you have one of those. Your peep is going to be lined up. And now then, when you get ready, you're going to put your finger over the trigger. And now that is your shot process. Okay, now this one's going to be on how to draw a handheld release. Some call them a thumb release, but you don't actually fire with the thumb. Remember, I went over that earlier. So on this one here, this one I actually hang off of the string, which is the way I use it when I'm hunting, so I can find it without looking at it. But you're going to put your hand all the way in here, and now there's no place to put your thumb behind it, so you just got to remember to keep that thumb off of this trigger, because if you pull that, it will fire. So now, same process as before. Put your hand in here, get that hand position. Now, when I draw, I like to put my thumb beside it because that's not even near to the trigger. So now, as we come up and draw, the same process. Now then I can turn the release and get it to where it's going to be able to fire.
So that's my process for the two type of releases, whether it's the handheld or the caliper type. This one is actually a caliper. It has just a hook on it that opens up, so I can look and find it and hook it up really nice. One of the things that I alluded to was, you know, keeping your finger off of the trigger for the handheld. What I do is I don't have a knob. Those that are watching, I don't have a knob, that knurled knob that's on most all the handheld releases. I don't use it because what I do is I take that trigger, sits in the spot between my index finger and my thumb, back in there, because I put the release back a bit further. Instead of being the fingertips, I put it at the second knuckle. So instead of being at the tip, you know, holding it with the tip, I bury it back into the second set of knuckles, so it's in close. And then I put my thumb on there. And now this release has a place I can actually put my thumb on it, a little curved place. So I can put my hand on there, and now I have pressure on it. And now as I pull, I can put pressure on it. Now, if I really had to fire it without doing it, I can just tighten my fist up and it will fire. But if I just take that and I'm pulling through the shot, then just that pressure is going to fire it. Now, I didn't show shooting them action. This one just wanted to show, you know, how to draw and anchor points. So that's one of the things that I went through in a couple of videos I was doing here. So that's one of the things to get you started. Now, you don't need your bow to practice your shot process. So what you do is take a piece of string that your release will hook onto. You're going to make a loop that'll fit around your thumb. Now, I don't have a video showing how this works. I should probably create one here pretty soon. But it goes around your thumb. It has that loop. So now you're at your drawing. Now, at the other end, you're going to have a loop that your release will hook into. and you want it to be your exact same draw length. So what you're going to do on there is you're going to use whichever release you have, and you're going to go through your whole shot process. And then when that goes off, because your arm's not locked out, it has a place to go forward. So depending on how much you have it bent, but you only need just a little bit of bent, so that arm goes a little bit forward when you shoot. And now when you go through and shoot, that string should leave your hand and go straight to your target. And that's what you want to do to practice. You can practice that. You can practice that. All you need is your release and that string. You can practice it in your house. You can practice aiming towards your TV, your anything. Just find a target to aim for, and just keep doing it. And if it doesn't go towards the target, goes off, then what you're doing is you're pulling your hand. Now, if you're going to shoot an open stance, you're most likely going to pull it off to the side, which would be, right hand would be pulling to the left hand would be pulling it to the right, because your arm is forward. It's not pushing straight to your target, because as an angle, as your arm straightens out, it's going to go back. So if it's pointing straight to your target, it's going to extend straight to your target. If it's off at a little bit of an angle, it can't go straight to your target because your target is off to the side. So that's why I teach that closed stance, because your force is going to go straight to your target. Everything is focused straight to where you want the arrow to go. It's all in a straight line. It's just a matter of looking at your target and getting everything flowing directly to the target where you want it to go. And that's the key to anything, is, be consistent. Now, if you're having trouble doing it that way and want to do a little bit more open stance, go ahead and do that. Just realize that you've got to make sure that you have the same length, the same pressure, everything. That's the key, no matter what you're doing, is it's got to be the same every time you do it. If you're consistently doing the same thing every time, your arrow's going to consistently do the same thing every time. So that's where you want to look at, how are we going to go through and find a way that you can be consistent. I've heard stories, you probably heard them on some of the previous podcasts, where the guy just kind of just goofing around made, just kind of weird situation, and it's like, start shooting good. So it's not traditional, but you just want to make sure that you're consistent at whatever you're doing, that you're consistent at what's going on. And, one of the things that you can do is, make sure you get into some place that you can have some help. And that's where Archery Talk 101 Facebook group is a good place to be in. If you're not a member of that group already, you might want to join. One of the things you can do is upload a video of you shooting, and we'll take a look at it, and we'll give you pointers. If you're struggling with something, say, hey, this is the problem I'm having. And we're going to want to see a video of you shooting in order to figure out what some of those problems are, because it could just be a little fine tuning that you need. There's one little thing that you're doing wrong. And, one of the things you want to remember to do is you're not pulling the trigger on a wrist strap. You're just putting pressure on it, and you're actually pulling through the shot with your back muscles. That was kind of a hard concept for me to understand to start with. But after a while, I learned it, and it's like, oh, this is a whole lot easier now. I don't have to worry about timing when that arrow goes across the target and whatnot. Later on, we'll get into, what can cause target panic, how you can solve it, a lot of that stuff. We'll go through some bit more shot stuff, but I want to kind of just get a beginning basic lesson on how to get started and ways that you can get started up to this point. So if you're thinking about getting a bow, you might look at it, okay, I want to get a compound bow. I'm not sure which one yet. You know what? Take a look at the releases. Get yourself a good quality release. I like Scott releases. They're really good. Carter makes good releases. True Ball makes good releases. Stanislavski, they make good releases. You just got to figure out what you want. Now, as a beginner, don't get a handheld release. There's just too much going on that you have to keep track of. with a caliper style or a hook style or wrist strap one, you're going to put your finger behind the trigger when you draw. That way you can't accidentally pull the trigger. Because what will happen is if you're not careful with the handheld one or a thumb release, you're going to actually touch that trigger, and as you're drawing back, you're going to smack yourself in the mouth and wonder how your release went off. Well, it's because you pulled the trigger. So that's what you want to do. So start off with, go ahead and get you a good quality release. A lot of times you can try different releases. You can go to the store. I know the Cabela's up here has what they have something you can actually try the releases out. It's a handheld thing that you can draw back and then you can go ahead and fire them because that's what it's designed for. It's not shooting a whole bow. So try the releases out and see what feels good in your hand. You know, strap it on. Now, one of the things I want to let you know is they're wrist strap, not hand straps. So, you know, where your wrist bends, you know, you're going to have little flex. So go ahead and bend your wrist. You can see above there, there's a couple little bones. You want it on the arm itself, not on the hand, because you want it back on the wrist, because that is going to be pulled. Now, one of the things you can do to see what's going on is put your hands out in front of you, and with whatever hand you're going to be drawing with, hook your fingers together and pull. Now, you're going to feel a little pressure in the wrist. You know, right there where that joint is, you're going to feel a little pressure in there, as well as, you know, probably your elbows and you know, some other stuff. Now, reach back and grab onto your wrist. Go ahead and wrap your thumb and index finger around, and then go ahead and wrap the other ones around, and now pull. You don't feel anything on the wrist, but you feel more pressure in the back and not as much in the elbow. So that's why you want to have that wrist fastened to your wrist, not to your hand. It also moves that trigger back further so you can get back to that second joint. So that's one of the things you want to do is you can control more weight without having so much pressure by putting your hands together, grabbing that wrist and pulling. Because now you feel it in the back, you don't feel it in the elbow. If you're pulling on the hand, you're going to feel more pressure in your elbow. So that's what you want to think about when you're putting that on there. Do you want pressure in the elbow, or do you use your big back muscles, or you want to use your tendons in your elbow to kind of pull that bow? And that's where you're going to go through, is use those back muscles to pull that bow. And by hooking it on your wrist, that will take care of that. So that's going to be it for lesson one, getting started. We want to get you started, and you know, make a comment. You know, are you new to archery? And you know, what are you looking to get out of it? You know, I'd like to hear. If anybody's interested in you know, contacting me a little bit more, what I'll do here this next week here is, if you want me to take a look at your shooting form, just let me know, and then we'll set up something where you can get me the video, and I'll critique it and I'll send it back to you. You know, with some questions and things that you can do. So just let me know. Just comment to, hey, you know, I'd like my look at my form, and then we'll figure out a way to get them to you, and then we can take a look at it and make you a little bit better. That's just something that, you know, I want to help you get started. And you know, if you're starting out and struggling, let's not struggle. Let's get you going a little bit better, and not have so many problems to start with. Let's get going on the right path, and you can enjoy your archery journey. So that's kind of it for today. Remember, you can listen to Audible, listen to the podcast on Audible, as well as on Spotify and a couple of the other podcast places. You can catch the video in the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group. That is there, and I generally go live in those. This one I'm not going live in, but I generally go live into those. We do have interviews with all kinds of people, from the beginner that's just starting out, that doesn't have any experience, to the semi-pro, the pro, the Olympic archer. You know, there's all kinds, you know, some that just want to hunt, some that just do target. We interview, you know, all kinds of different archers all over the world. We've talked to archers in many different countries, besides the United States, where I'm based out of. You know, some in Canada, some in you know, Africa, Croatia, Belgium, Austria, Germany, and then several other places as well. So we just have a lot of fun talking archery. So if you want to be a guest on the podcast, hey, yeah, you're more than welcome to. Just let me know, and I'll send you links so you can schedule some time. But that's been a lot of fun talking about there, and I hope everybody kind of gets something out of this. The next lesson, I'll go a little bit more deeper into some of the other techniques that we can go through and learn. Actually, do some more shot process and a couple other things that go in there, some training techniques that I'll talk about later that we can do. But right now, we want to get you going and getting you started in archery so you can have all the fun that all the rest of us are having in archery. So, once again, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm your host today on Archery Talk 101, and we'll see you on the next one in lesson 2 for the second one of this year. And we'll have a good year this year, and hopefully we can learn a lot.